45.
Looks like Todd Duncan.
Sounds like, must be a duck.
Jersey girls are the best.
Yeah.
What?
The bunny ears are back. We are back. We are back. Guys, I got one of my business partners. Am I allowed to call you business partner, Craig?
Absolutely. That's what I call you.
All right. Yeah, one of my business partners on here, the CEO of Anniemac Home Mortgage, Craig Ungaro. How are you doing, Craig?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here. How you doing?
I'm doing really good, actually. I got a nice 7.5 hours of sleep. So, by the way, just FYI, it was Joe Panapienko 5 years ago that tells me, Bob, you got to sleep 7 hours. I was like, what do you mean? I can't. I'm good with 5. He goes, no, you got to get 7. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I literally retrained my brain to sleep 7 hours.
So, Bob, you know, it's funny. You know me in work, right? And you know that one of the areas that I focus in on is business analytics, right? We have a lot of reporting, a lot of different things, and
Sure.
spend a lot of my time, getting information through the reporting. And so this ring that I'm wearing, and I do wear it on my wedding ring or my ring finger. I replaced my wedding ring with it, but this is actually from Joe, and this is an Aura ring, and it actually tracks my sleep. So every morning I wake up and I look at my phone and I figure out exactly how much I slept and how well I slept, because sometimes sleeping 7 hours is different than getting, the right amount of sleep, the right type of sleep, I should say. So he got me hooked on it too. We actually, the executive team, every once in a while send screenshots of like how well we slept, what our sleep score was. I got a 94 last night, and so Joe's sort of getting all of us on the sleep.
Yeah. So, but I got to tell you, man, I mean, once I started doing it, my body felt different.
Yeah.
I mean, I could literally feel the difference between sleeping the way I was before versus actually sleeping so here's a downside of that, right, Craig? I don't know about you, but by about 9:15 every night now, I'm just wobbling around, like looking for my bed. Right? And then about 9:30, I mean, I'm a wimp, man. I'm like, a friend of mine literally was like texting me last night, like, hey, he had tickets to some concert in DC. It's like, Fob, let's go. I was like, dude, you don't get it. By the time the band comes on, I'm in bed.
Yeah. I have an opportunity. I'm a Phillies fan. I have an opportunity to go to Game 7 tonight, and I've opted out. I need to go to bed. I can't stay up that late. I got to do the same thing.
Yeah. My actual personal trainer says to me, like on those football games, he goes, well, the Patriots have never paid for my paycheck.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Yeah. Doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah, I can see the score in the morning and figure it out. So anyway, enough about all that, man. This is about you, Craig. This is not about Joe and all his craziness. All right, he was on there already before. So, Joe, you're the CEO of Anniemac, right? And we were kind of talking about this yesterday, right? You are a very young COO, so you're not like one of those old 50, 60-year-old CEOs that you meet in this industry that's been around, battered and tainted and got all these different, viewpoints on how life should be, right? You seem to have a very fresh outtake.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely, I'll just date myself. I'll be 42 next month.
Okay.
But I've been an executive for 11 years. And so I feel like, although a little bit of youth on my side, although that's fading by the day, but I do have some experience, and, I think that's really valuable. And I actually think the most valuable thing is that I failed early. And I think that's probably the best thing that could have happened to me, not at the time, but now looking back on it, you get really humbled by that. So, that's definitely kept me very motivated to continue to prove myself. I was a 31-year-old executive. It was a little bit of a head scratching move. Joe promoted me, and I did well out of the gate, and then kind of had some failures. And a lot of people looked at him like, yeah, we told you this was going to happen. This guy has never done this before, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so my why had changed. My why was I was motivated by trying to prove Joe right and my CEO correct, that he made the right decision. So all my actions became sort of a reflection of him and Ryan. And so you just approach things a little differently. And my operation is really run by my operator. It's not me. And I think that has a lot to do with the success I had. And that kind of keeps my perspective fresh, because it's really through the lens of a lot of other people.
Do you think, I mean, so that's interesting because I actually wrote a book called Falling Forward,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so I always think that when I fail is when I learn. When I'm succeeding, I don't know what it is. I'm on autopilot maybe, or whatever it is. I'm basking in the sun and the glory. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I'm not really looking around on how I got there. But when I fail, it's like I'm looking around what happened. I'm doing the autopsy, forensic audit, whatever you're going to call it, right? Try to figure this out. Like what caused this failure this time, Fob? Is that what you kind of went through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I had professional, like personal failure, for sure, very much it. But I would also say that that applies to challenging times. And today is some challenging times, right?
Sure.
And so this is really, I feel like every time we've come out of something like this, we are always just sharper, just better operators, better managers, better leaders. You know, this really, you know, during the good times, it's great when it's happening, but you do get yourself a little caught up. You start buying in your own, you know, your own success a little
Oh,
bit,
yeah.
and you get complacent, and you kind of, you know, you lose yourself a little bit. But when you get into times like this, you redefine, you know, you sort of. I almost like this time is like, you know, especially this era that we're going through right now. I'm like kind of like re-falling in love with the process, and sort of getting back to the basics is almost rejuvenating. So, but yeah, I definitely think that that growth always lies in those challenging and times, including failure.
Yeah. I mean, so we were on a manager's call this morning, and I was talking to my guys about, like, one of the things that we did today, I'll share with you, was I went around the Zoom room and I had everybody talk about a win that they had in the last 30 days. You know, like, stop talking about the bond market, stop talking about the loans that aren't working or there's no contracts being ratified. Let's talk about the wins. Whatever win it is, throw it on the floor today. And I started thinking to myself that that's really, like, if we're going to be leaders, especially in this current environment, we have to kind of lift up the people so that they can see that there is silver lining on this cloud, that it's not all just gloom and doom every single day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of the newscasters would want us to believe it's just, you know, the world is falling apart. And if you listen to news long enough, you'll begin to believe it.
That's so true. That really is so true. Yeah, I think, you know, what's important is to understand, like, in anything you do, you should have a goal, right? I think, like, we go throughout the days and go through weeks and go through months without goals. But I think when you set a goal, right, it establishes this new benchmark, this thing that you can or cannot achieve. But it also creates an environment in which nothing else really matters but that. So all the noise that you're describing is sort of irrelevant, because if you set a good goal for yourself, you are putting in place a series of actionable items that you now need to set forth and achieve. And so now you're focused. You are focused. But when you go about your day and your weeks and your month without that level of focus, it's easy to get distracted by things. So there's a lot of things that are still within our control. And yeah, I mean, that's the kind of what we're focused on right now. Yeah, we're in a tough time. We're going into the fourth quarter, but, like, there's a lot of opportunity in this environment too, not just on the production side, but, like, on the operations side. Like, there's so much opportunity. There's a number of products that we rolled out that we can kind of retrain on, right? There's a number of products that are still open for us to go get. There's a lot of cross-training opportunities within that. There's some technology and some workflow efficiencies we've been talking about, but you know, in the summer months, in the spring, we're too busy. So now's the time to sort of do those things and get ready for, you know, the next season, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, you know, you know, it's important for you to take control, though, over that time frame and make the most of it.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit. I mean, this is such a great opportunity, as you said. Like, so by the way, another topic we talked about this morning, I was telling the guys that, look, in 2020 and 2021, when the rates were low, you probably remember this, we didn't have enough operational support to get all the loans closed in time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like there was just nothing you could do about it. Like, you can't make the underwriter work more than 90 hours a week. You just can't do it.
Right.
Right. I mean, just so there was operational challenges, right? And so, yes, the rates were 2.5%, 3%, but what good was that rate if you couldn't close it? So what strategies do you see right now that you're employing to kind of, like, say, okay, guys, this is where we are today, but we know this is not going to last. You know, okay, longer for whatever, higher for longer, whatever the new mantra is, right? But we know that end comes sooner or later. What strategies as a CEO are you saying, okay, guys, we need to be ready for this moment? How do you do that?
Yeah, so it's really challenging, right? Because there's, you know, you have to, again, talk about the things that what we can do today to prepare. And so one of the things that we're very much preparing for is more inventory, And so just overall business picking up. And then also like a refi boom that'll occur at some point. Some pop will happen and it will occur. And so first thing you have to do is understand, like, what are your indicators that it's occurring? And then what is your plan and when that happens? And the first place you go is human capital, right? That's number one. And if you look at most mortgage companies, somewhere between like 60 and 70% of expense management are people. But you try to find ways to supplement that as much as possible, right? And you can supplement that through some offshoring, which is just people in another part of the globe. But then the other is what we've really been focused on is trying to get more out of the people that we have, and not by cracking the whip or making them work longer hours, as mentioned. It's more about like creating a more self-service environment. Like everybody will talk about loan quality in operations. People will talk about loan quality, clean files. They'll come in quicker. They'll come in. We'll get them out quicker. They'll be cleaner. The quality of the loan on the back end is better, et cetera, et cetera. Less touches, all that stuff. But setting up the environment for that to occur, like that's what we can do. We can do a better job of that without listing some technology providers because they're, those kind of come and go. We are working with a few that will allow a processor to really be able to have a real-time response environment with the information they're putting into the system, right? And so, in other words, I'm sure you've been in a situation where you have 10 conditions on a file, 5 conditions on a file, whatever it is. You get a document, and you're kind of stuck. You're like, do I send this in now with just the one document? Should I wait for a couple more documents? Now days are passing. You might get caught up in some other loans. Now a week has passed, 10 days have passed. Finally get those other things. You send it into the underwriter, and underwriter finds something wrong, and now you're going back to the borrower. Days after they gave you a document saying something's wrong.
Right.
That's not a great experience, right?
No.
And so for us, we think there's an opportunity for those things to get looked at in real time as the processor's receiving it and provide that feedback, right? Without having to be a file passed back and forth. That's one area where we think it's very, very advantageous. Another is we have so many products, so many great products, but they come with nuances. And those nuances, right? Like, so DU's been around for 20 years at least, right? And creating like a DU environment for all these ancillary products so that those little nuances get caught up front when you're talking to the borrower about what to expect, not at the end when an underwriter is signing off on a file, right? So those are areas I think that cause a lot less friction, so better customer experience, but also that will allow for more loans to be done with the same people.
So just so the audience understands, because the nice thing is we do have a mortgage-based audience. So that's a cool thing about this audience, right? So what you just said basically is where most lenders are saying, we want our underwriter minimal touches on a file. That's the key word, right? Minimal touches, right? And the less touches that they have, the better the file comes in, the smoother it goes out. You're saying, no. We don't really care how many touches they have. We want to make sure that the almost like a flywheel is in motion, right? You get a condition in, you got 5 conditions, you got 3 of those conditions. Don't wait for 4 and 5, send in 1, 2, and 3 today. Let's get those checked off because maybe 3 has a deposit that you now got to go source. So why wait another 3 days to be told that you could do it today? Is that a way to?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and there's a little bit of sort of enhancement within that. So I'll answer the question, but I'll start with saying like, and when I first got into operations, it was I would go to these networking events and talk to people, my peers, and a lot of bravado around touches and all these different things, and I'd come back and say, hey guys, we got to lower our touches, and we created incentive programs and we did all this, and there was always an unintended consequence to that, right? And so we pivoted. And this is a while ago, but we pivoted and we said, let's keep the main thing the main thing, and the main thing is really the borrower experience, right? That's the most important thing to what we're doing. And really, I would say the customer experience, which includes the loan officer, right? And our branches, right? That's really important. It's got to be a predictable environment. We can't have surprises. And then if we can do that with less touches, great, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is that predictable environment. So yes to what you were saying, but I believe but we're testing it out now and we're seeing it is that there are ways to get real-time response without even having to necessarily add another touch. Right, there are ways. There's technology that sort of can read documents and give that second set of eyes to the processor, so they will get that real-time responsiveness. So if there is something wrong, we can go back to the borrower that day. It doesn't always involve having to have another touch on the underwriting desk.
So you're talking about, and I guess the keyword or buzzword would be robotics or some kind of AI feature
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of different technologies. OCR technology is one. AI is obviously a really hot buzzword right now, and they can read PDF documents and can be that second set of eyes for you. Whether it's able to sort of bump it up against conditions. That what the underwriter is looking for is another thing. But things like income, assets, things that are very core to the file will probably still remain at that underwriter skill level, but there's a number of other documents that can really be very much checklist and off the underwriter's plate, and very much like something a processor can almost self-underwrite.
Greg, how do you calm people's nerves down? I mean, well, let's talk about this buzzword AI, right? And how do you calm people's nerves especially in your section, right, of the operational section, right, where like we know AI is coming.
Yeah,
it's here. Forget that it's coming. It's here, right? I mean,
sure.
It's a brave new world. How do you tell them that this is a good thing and it's not going to replace you? It's actually going to take redundant work and minimize those activities that are redundant. That what I mean. But how do you remove that fear as a leader? How do you remove that fear?
Well, I think a lot of it is people need to know the organization they're joining, right? So if you're not talking that way in the interviewing process, if you're not excited about it in just normal meetings, when you drop it on them, it will surprise them and they'll feel that way. But if it's a big part of why they joined your organization to begin with, it's much easier. One of the things that we really, we do this with outsourcing, we do this with any other things, is really want to augment the process, right? And so one really easy way to do it is you ask an underwriter, processor, closer, like, if you had an assistant, what would they do? What would they do for you? And then you let the technology do that for them. So now they're part of the solution. They're part of the ideas that can augment their world for them and can do better things. I mean, most people don't want to do mundane things. So if the technology can do it, it's not probably the most fulfilling thing for them. But if you don't replace that work with something fulfilling, you'll have that sort of that territory, that turf grab, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really important to be able to speak holistically about it and what it's doing for the organization and making people feel excited about where the organization is going and what they'll be a part of. And if that's not something that they're excited about, then probably isn't a match. And it's okay that we sort of.
It's a good way to look at it. Do you think your age opens you up to be more flexible in your thought pattern with the new technology that's coming in? Because, look, let's face it. I mean, I was on FinTech or whatever that with Brian View a few months back, right? And we were talking about there's a lot of guys, look, the average age in the mortgage industry right now is below me. I used to look up at, right? And now I'm looking down at the average age, right? And so there's a lot of guys. I love technology. I've always been in love with technology. I've never been scared of technology. But I know there's a lot of guys that are my age, 56, that are like, oh hell no, I don't need a CRM. I don't need a Facebook page or whatever, right? They consider Facebook technology. I mean, so does your age play into your openness to bring in technology to Anniemac and harness it for all it can do?
I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, but what I will say is that I always feel like I'm representing whoever is not in the room, the unrepresented, right? Like so meaning like, so when I'm hanging out with technology people and I'm at these conferences and I'm talking to them, like they are so far out in the technology, and I'm reeling them back into like, hey, reality is there's a loan officer with a realtor and a borrower, and they're not where you guys are, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of like, even I might be the youngest person in the room, but I'm also maybe the one pulling back to less technology. And then when I'm in the room with my loan officers and you see me in these settings, right, I am like the tech guy in the room. And then people are like, whoa, this is just thinking of some real far out stuff here. And really, I'm somewhere in between like the techie people and the sort of old school folks. So I think I'm in that sweet spot.
And you also have a compliance background, right? I mean, you started off as a compliance officer, right? So, I mean, that's got to play a role in the way you're seeing things. No, I mean, especially with technology and how it can and can't be used.
Yeah, so if you really want the roller coaster ride, I actually started in sales. Then I went to compliance. Then I went to operations, and then I'm sort of back full circle in tech. But you're right. I mean, in 2007, compliance prior to 2007 was like an annual thing to do. It was like your taxes, right? You file them at the end of the year. That was compliance. Right? You file your HMDA reports and registrations with the state. You pay your money and you go about your day. And then in 2007, 2008, and it started becoming part of how you operate, right? And I will never forget, I went into Joe's office and I said, listen, we can't do this anymore. We can't do this anymore. He handed it back to me and he said, listen, you don't ever walk in here without telling me, tell me what I can't do, tell me what I can do. And so from that point forward, you use technology to really try to solve a lot of the problems that were presented through regulation. You know, and the first thing that we did was we took paper out of the system, because there was no way to sort of go to bin at the time and look through files and audit things in real time, make sure it was being done right. If you plug everything at the end of the process, that's a disaster, because if you find things at the end, it's the worst time to find things out. So making things digital was definitely the first sort of technical solve that we had. It allowed us to have optics on the entire pipeline from wherever. And now, like, you see that go like full circle with the borrower data in the technology space now. Like, you have to be like a compliance nerd to get in technology at this space, you know, with just like you mentioned, CRMs and social media, and those things are awesome. They can get you in a lot of trouble too if you're not doing them correctly. You're not with an organization that's going to sort of keep the parameters on while still being innovative.
Do you ever see something like in your compliant person comes out like, "Oh my God, are you crazy?" And you got to like somehow another say it in a way that's more collaborative?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm battling out with my compliance and general counsel all the time. And again, same thing. They feel like I'm always on sales side when I'm talking through things and I'm trying to give them the perception, you know, of the challenges that you guys might be facing. And then when I'm presenting to the sales folks, they see me as a compliance guy. And it's,
I mean, listen, I mean, I've been like in about 60 days, it'll be 30 years for me. Right, January 4th, I came in 94. Right, January 4th, 94. So it'll be 30 years, and I can tell you, man, that like this was the Wild West. When I walked in that day, I had no idea what I was walking in on. I mean, it was like I came from the insurance industry, so 6 years as an insurance agent, which you're just kind of like waiting for a car accident or someone to die or something. Like, you know what I mean, to this crazy no, I mean, you could charge up to 7.5 points. You were getting 60% of that. I mean, it was like, it was like Wolf on Wall Street, but in suburban Virginia.
Yeah. It was my first job out of college. And it was, and I just thought to myself, like, this can't be right? Like, this is how this is done. Like, you just add points, like, really, that doesn't, how's that happen? But it was wild. Even when I was in early 2000, 2004, 2005. So. Yeah.
So listen, you said something at the summit that caught my attention, and it was interesting because that's really what the spearhead this conversation, by the way, right? You said, and I'm obviously paraphrasing you, right? So please don't hold me to this, and you can correct me. But you said because of the advent of AI and what Anniemac is now trying to accomplish with using AI to kind of underwrite files, you were removing overlays. And I thought, hold on. Here's a compliant officer guy talking about removing overlays so that AI can actually you can take advantage of the AI technology. So, I mean, I know I just gave you a whole bunch of things to talk about right there. So I'm going to hand it off to you. I want you to unpack this little topic that I kind of picked up here.
But yeah, I really do think this opens the door for more intuitive lending and allows for less overlays. And sometimes overlays are a thing you have to do. It's not always the right thing to do, but it's the best thing to do, right? Like, meaning, and a lot, like I joke with people all the time, tell my kids constantly, like, I don't always get to make the decision between right and wrong. Like, anybody in my organization, anybody can make that decision. I have to make between like wrong and wrong. What's the best wrong all the time? And sometimes overlays are the answer, right? That might be it. But with technology, you maybe remove some of those parameters or some of those guardrails that you have to have in place. You know, some of the things that we're trying to do in that specific topic that you're talking about is giving you information. You know, everybody is using technology in their day-to-day life. So it doesn't really matter of your age. Like, really, everybody is so much farther along than you can imagine. You go back 10 years. If you just look at a video of yourself 10 years ago and think about the technology you're using, it's totally different, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we realize is loan officers, realtors, they are working some crazy hours. They're working weekends, and they need information. They need it now, right? And that's just what we need to be able to do. And so through AI and through technology, you know, our agency's information is public. It's out there, right? It's out for these technologies to go out and grab that information. And so there's no reason why we don't connect to that and give you access to it the same way you ask Alexa or Siri for information, right? That's what we're trying Because Sunday morning, if that's when you're talking to your borrower and that's when you need to know the answer, that's when you should get the answer, right?
Yeah.
And it's not cost effective for me to just have staff 24/7 waiting for your question.
Absolutely.
But we can use technology for it. And so, but then the problem becomes if we have all these overlays on top of it, then now we have to maintain that database for the AI to go to and make sure it has updated information. So what would be best is for us to remove as much of that as possible, because as Fannie and Freddie and Ginnie, as they continue to update things, we don't have any maintenance. We don't have to put any maintenance into keeping that up to date for you Sunday morning or Saturday night or whenever you need that information.
So do you think, because I love this word, this is one of my favorite words in the last couple of years, right? Because it reminds me of the Terminator, right? Machine learning, right? I love that word. I mean, I don't know what it is, Craig. I got to maybe talk to my therapist about that, right? Like, why am I getting right? But I love the word machine learning because I think it just for me, it's hopeful, it's potential, right? And it's unlimited because the more we teach the machine the more we teach it, the more it learns and the better it responds. And so, in what you're saying, the machine will learn how to underwrite a file with no overlays in a matter of time. The more data we feed it.
Absolutely. I mean, it underwriting any aspect, any knowledge base that you have, any reliance you have on knowledge, it learns it, right? And so let's take something that's not out in the universe already. Let's just take I don't know, we'll take HR, for example, right? And I know this isn't sort of the most appealing topic. This is an example that people can follow, right? If our HR department is constantly getting the same type of questions, hey, are we off on this day? How many hours of PTO do I have left? Whatever. And if you're answering the same question day in and day out for something, right? All you have to do is answer it once, feed the knowledge base. The next time it comes in, you don't ever get it. The machine learned it and they answer it for you, right? That's exactly what that's that machine learning. So there's so much opportunity for you to be able to answer a question one time, literally just answer it one time and be able to service 350 different loan officers, 365 days a year.
I love that, man. I mean, sometimes this is just a part of me, right? I don't know if I could ever do it, but there's a part of me that says, I want to go back and be a full-time LO again. Because if I was doing about I was doing about $6 million a month back in my heyday, right? Which is like the good faith estimate by hand.
Sure, yeah. That's wild.
Right? I mean, what could I really pull off today with all the technology and all these other tools? Could I really do maybe 30 million a month? Could I do something like that? Is that possible? I mean, I don't know, but man, I would like to try.
Think how many people you could reach with this technology. I mean, we're talking about AI in the manufacturing process, but think about it in the prospecting space. I mean,
that's what I've been thinking. I mean, that's where my head has gone. Is like, just all I got to do is go buy a database of say maybe 80,000 names of people with equity, and just start pumping them out with some of the AI technology that we already have. It's not even new, and let loose on it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm getting way ahead of myself. This is why I was trying to tell you the other day. This is why salespeople need to talk to their operations people and have a partnership. I agree. It's not it's never been like I'm against them or they're against me. It's like, okay, look, this is the problem I'm having. How can you help me fix it? And if you're having a problem, how can I help you fix it? And when you create that partnership between sales and ops, dude, it's magic.
Well, I will say that that is something that we have here in Anniemac, and really no credit to me. It's really the people that are in it. Is that as much as we're talking about technology and sort of loans flowing through and self-service, we recognize that especially in today's environment, there's so many more complexities to loan situations, and sometimes it's technology is relying on the information you give it, right, for it to give you the output, and sometimes you need help even with the inputs. And at Anniemac, we have some really great operators who create strong partnerships, and I'm sure you saw some of that at the South Summit, Fobby, with our seasoned branch managers and our operators who were in attendance as well, and they very much see this relationship as a partnership. You asked if you could call me a partner. I mean, that's exactly how we sort of look at you all, look at our branch managers, and the willingness to hear the story, tell the story, because it is more than just credit scores and FICOs, DTIs, LTVs, et cetera. It's more than that. It's more about really understanding what's going on in the situation, and then working together to come up with that solution.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I got one more question for you, and then we're going to wrap this up, right? But you were recognized as a top 40 mortgage professional to watch. What year was that, by the way? They just gave me these notes.
I actually don't know. I think it was under 40, so it had to be like 3 years ago, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So under 40, right? So look, I mean, because there's a lot of people who listen and they're like, man, I want to be like that, or I want to be like that. I mean, did you target like this is your game plan? Like, if someone is aspiring to be where you are, I mean, what's the like the number one Craig Ungaro rule that you followed to get here?
Yeah. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's very flattering. But I would say no. I talk to staff all the time about this. Like, I'll get the question like, where do you see me in a couple of years? Where do you see me? And the reality is that I don't know. I really don't know. I think cream rises to the top. And so every opportunity that I've had, like every advancement I had, came from an opportunity, and every opportunity was disguised in more work. And so it's not like the movies where like you land this account, you get the regional vice president role, and you do this thing, and then you get this, right? And I think the minute you can rid yourself of that quid pro quo, like and you just look at every challenge as a true opportunity, even if you don't get something from it that moment, success is going to follow. That's the mindset.
No, I mean, I think that's, you summed it right up. I mean, in there, I hope the audience heard more work.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. The work nobody else wants to do.
Because, I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? I mean, you're the guy who's got to roll up their sleeves and tell the wife, hey, look, we can't make it tonight. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in the office with Joe.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the work nobody else wants to do. And I think what Sheryl Sandberg that says that it's like, I think this hers, it might be somebody else, but it's if someone offers you a seat on a rocket ship, you don't ask which seat's yours, you just get on. And that's the same as anything that, again, disguised as not the sexy work, not the cool thing, no real, guaranteed, reward at the end of it. You do enough of that stuff and cream rises.
I love that, brother. Well, look, man, I look forward to our journey together on this one. So I'm really looking excited about this one. Okay. So thanks for coming out here, buddy. And let's get this over and let's get this over with. I don't know what I just said.
Right.
This is why I need a producer, man. John Perry is not here. I don't know where the hell he is. Thanks, man. Out of here.
45.
Looks like Tom Duncan.
Sounds like, must be a duck.
Jersey girls are the best.
Yeah.
What?
The bunny ears are back.